What Attila's Huns did to defeated wives makes every other war crime look merciful by comparison. The systematic horror that followed conquest wasn't random barbarian brutality. It was calculated cultural extraction that would reshape European civilization forever. We know barbarians as raiders and destroyers, but what happened after the siege ended tells a different story. When the walls of Aquileia fell in July 452, the real horror wasn't the killing, it was the sorting. The morning sun catches bronze scattered across Adriatic mud, but the systematic way Hun warriors move through the burning city reveals this isn't random violence. This is organized extraction. Old women pushed toward smoking pyres. Children herded into lines beside waiting wagons. Women of childbearing age pulled forward for inspection like livestock at market. A Hun commander with ritual scars examines teeth and checks hands for calluses that reveal useful skills. He speaks Latin with Eastern inflections, but his words follow commercial patterns any Roman merchant would recognize. Good health, educated hands. Mark her for the northern roots. Marriage rings disappear into leather pouches not stolen, cataloged. The true scope becomes clear when you see the wagon trains stretching beyond the broken walls. These aren't improvised carts for random captives. Purpose-built vehicles wait in organized columns. Supply wagons loaded with provisions for extended journeys. Guard rotations that suggest planned routes rather than opportunistic raiding. Archaeological evidence from Hun period sites reveals the infrastructure supporting this system. Excavations show permanent settlements with specialized holding areas, workshop complexes requiring skilled management, and administrative centers that needed literate personnel. The Huns weren't just taking slaves, they were harvesting human expertise. Children cry as they're separated from mothers and sorted by age and apparent strength. A girl of perhaps 6 reaches desperately for her mother as Hun soldiers lift her toward a different wagon. The mother's anguished scream cuts through the morning air, but the soldiers continue their work with practiced efficiency. Contemporary sources hint at what came next. Priscus of Panium, who visited Hun territories in 449, describes polyglot courts, where multiple languages were spoken and complex diplomatic protocols were followed. This multilingual capability required systematic education provided by captured Romans, Greeks, and Goths who had no choice but to serve. But the most disturbing detail emerges from soil analysis at siege sites. Chemical traces suggest organized encampments designed for temporary detention of large populations. Not chaotic looting camps, but structured facilities for processing human cargo. The Huns had perfected this system over decades of conquest. As foreign hands force bitter liquid down captive throats to ensure compliance during transport, the true nature of Hun strategy becomes clear. They didn't come to destroy Roman civilization, they came to absorb it. Every person, every skill, every piece of useful knowledge now flows north toward an empire most Romans never knew existed. The burning city of Aquileia wasn't conquered, it was harvested. The journey north reveals the true sophistication of Hun operations and is more terrifying than any barbarian brutality you could imagine. Rivers blur past wagon convoys, but the organization remains crystal clear military precision developed over generations of human trafficking. Dendrochronological analysis of Hun settlements shows continuous expansion from 440 to 453, precisely matching territorial conquests. These weren't temporary camps, but permanent installations designed for systematic cultural absorption. Tree ring evidence reveals coordinated construction across vast territories, suggesting centralized planning that would impress Roman engineers. The wagons stop at a fortified settlement along the Danube, where palisade walls surround permanent buildings. This challenges every Roman assumption about nomadic barbarians. Hun women inspect arriving captives with professional detachment, checking teeth, examining hands for calluses that reveal skills, assessing reproductive potential with clinical precision. "This one reads Latin," says a scarred woman in accented Greek, pointing to ink stains on a captive's fingers. "Send her to the education compounds. The children need proper instruction." The casual efficiency chills more than screaming would. These people have industrialized cultural theft. Recent archaeological work in the Carpathian Basin reveals material culture showing systematic fusion of traditions. Roman architectural techniques appear in Hun fortifications. Germanic metalworking enhances Hun weapons. Byzantine artistic styles adapt to Hun tastes. This wasn't accidental cultural blending, this was deliberate synthesis requiring captured expertise. A young Gothic woman whispers to newer captives about the settlement's layout. "They separate us by skills, not origins. Healers go to the medical compounds. Scribes handle administration. Craftsmen work the forges. Everyone serves the imperial project." Her resignation speaks to months of psychological conditioning that broke resistance without visible brutality. Primary sources hint at this system's scope. When Priscus visited Attila's court, he found not a barbarian chieftain but an imperial administrator managing complex diplomatic relations with multiple civilizations simultaneously. The wooden hall where Attila received guests followed protocols as sophisticated as those in Constantinople, yet the Khan himself drank from a simple wooden cup while others used gold vessels. This calculated simplicity revealed strategic thinking. Attila understood that true power lay not in personal ostentation, but in systematic control of human resources. The luxury surrounding him came from tribute and conquest, but his personal austerity demonstrated service to imperial goals rather than individual greed. The linguistic environment accelerates cultural absorption. Survival in Hun territories requires multilingual capability, creating incentives for cooperation independent of direct coercion. Women who can translate between Latin, Gothic, and various Eastern dialects become valuable assets whose skills ensure better treatment. But resistance takes subtle forms that rarely appear in historical records. Some captives teach incorrect information to Hun children, sabotaging their education. Others introduce deliberate flaws into administrative systems. A few maintain secret communication networks between settlements, preserving hope of eventual coordination. The Hun response reveals administrative sophistication that surpasses crude punishment. Rather than execution, resistors face systematic psychological pressure designed to produce genuine collaboration through carefully managed hopelessness. As night falls over the Danube, Latin prayers mix with Hun throat singing, the sound of civilizations grinding against each other with women's lives as the contact point. The wooden hall where the great Khan receives captives defies every Roman assumption about barbarian simplicity. Persian carpets cover polished floors, yet the man who rules this empire drinks from a wooden cup while his guests use gold vessels. 3 months after Aquileia's fall, Roman women stand before Attila in a reception hall that rivals anything in Constantinople. This isn't the savage chieftain of Roman propaganda. The man examining captives speaks perfect Latin, discusses Greek philosophy, and manages diplomatic correspondence in multiple languages simultaneously. "You managed a centurion's household," he observes, studying a trembling woman from Aquileia. "You understand Roman administrative procedures, tax collection, supply management. These capabilities serve imperial purposes." His voice carries the measured tone of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. Priscus of Panium's eyewitness account from 449 describes exactly this scene, a sophisticated court where captured intellectuals contributed expertise to Hun imperial ambitions. The Byzantine diplomat found not barbarian chaos, but systematic cultural synthesis operating on an unprecedented scale. Other Roman women moved through the hall with resigned efficiency. Some translate between diplomatic parties speaking Gothic, Greek, and Eastern languages. Others manage administrative records using Roman accounting methods adapted for Hun needs. They've found ways to survive by making themselves indispensable. A woman approaches carrying architectural drawings, her hands shaking as she points to fortification designs, blending Roman engineering with Hun strategic requirements. The eastern walls need reinforcement, she reports in Greek-accented Latin. The garrison recommends these modifications. Her technical expertise has become her survival strategy. But resistance carries consequences that chill more than direct brutality. Another woman sits silently in the hall's corner, her eyes vacant despite appearing physically unharmed. Valeria attempted escape 3 months ago, whispers a Gothic captive. Her punishment wasn't death, it was methodical breaking. Now she serves as a living warning. Archaeological evidence from Hun settlements reveals infrastructure supporting cultural absorption. Workshop complexes where Roman techniques improve Hun crafts, administrative centers requiring literate personnel, educational facilities where Hun children learn multiple languages and diplomatic skills. The empire systematically harvested civilizational knowledge through captured experts. Serve willingly and maintain dignity, Attila continues, or resist and join Valeria in her current condition. Either way, you will contribute to imperial progress. The method remains your choice. His tone suggests the decision is purely formal. Through the hall's windows, construction crews expand the settlement. New compounds rise to house additional captives from planned campaigns. This conversation happens simultaneously across dozens of conquered territories. The scale of systematic cultural theft surpasses anything in recorded history. As evening approaches, Hun throat singing mixes with Latin prayers from the women's quarters, the sound of civilizations grinding together through human suffering. The morning routine that develops over following months reveals Hun's psychological control operating with precision that would impress Roman administrators. Every aspect of captive life follows carefully designed patterns intended to break resistance while preserving useful capabilities. Daily schedules begin with teaching Hun children Roman numerals and basic Latin grammar. Their eager faces remind captives painfully of students once tutored in destroyed cities. But these lessons serve imperial ambitions rather than individual education. The children learn not just language, but Roman concepts of law, administration, and military organization that strengthen Hun governance. Afternoon sessions involve detailed questioning about Roman military tactics, trade routes, and administrative procedures. Hun officers listen carefully as captives describe centurion training methods, legion supply systems, and siege engineering techniques. This knowledge, extracted through systematic interrogation, flows directly into Hun military planning for future campaigns. The other captive women develop survival strategies that reveal the system's sophisticated psychology. Some teach architectural consultation for Hun fortification projects, their expertise ensuring continued value. Others use medical knowledge to treat Hun warriors, earning protection through utility. Each woman finds ways to make herself indispensable. But pregnancy transforms everything. Children growing inside captive wombs represent the future of Hun. Imperial ambitions, half Roman, half Hun, raised with the best of both civilizations. Attila visits the women's quarters regularly, not for intimacy but to discuss unborn children's education, philosophy, languages, military science, diplomatic protocol, all planned before birth. The full scope of Attila's vision emerges through conversations with other captive intellectuals. Hun settlements across the Danube Basin house Roman engineers, Greek physicians, Gothic metalworkers, and Persian scholars. This isn't cultural destruction, it's cultural absorption. The Huns built a syncretic empire using the brains and wombs of conquered peoples. Archaeological evidence from Hun territories reveals infrastructure supporting this system. Schools where Hun children learn multiple languages, workshops where Roman techniques improve Hun crafts, planning centers where captured administrators design efficient government systems. The barbarians create the world's first truly international civilization. Yet resistance continues in subtle forms that rarely appear in historical records. Some women teach Hun children incorrectly, sabotaging their education. Others pass coded messages between compounds, maintaining underground networks. A few attempt dangerous methods to prevent pregnancy, preferring death to contributing to Hun imperial ambitions. Personal resistance takes a different form for some captives. Hidden scraps of parchment, record Hun, customs, political structures, military capabilities. If they survive, Rome needs to understand what it's really fighting. This isn't a barbarian horde. This is a sophisticated imperial rival using Roman methods against Rome itself. Discovery of such documentation would mean joining Valeria in her broken-minded servitude. The risk grows daily as Hun administrators develop increasingly sophisticated methods for detecting subversion. They understand Roman intelligence gathering better than most Romans. The psychological torture proves exquisite in its sophistication. Captive women witness the systematic breaking of newly arrived Romans. The process follows precise protocols: isolation, controlled starvation, forced dependency, then gradual reintegration as compliant servants. Roman matrons reduced to grateful slaves within weeks. The efficiency terrifies more than crude brutality. Germanic advisors who speak flawless Latin explain the methodology. Romans think we're savages, but we've studied Roman slavery, Greek pedagogy, Persian administration, Chinese bureaucracy. We take the best techniques from every civilization we encounter. This makes our methods superior to any single cultural approach. The cruelest revelation comes when captives discover their own children in Hun educational compounds. Those captured as toddlers during city raids now speak Hun dialects fluently, learn throat singing, and participate willingly in Hun cultural practices. They don't recognize their birth mothers. To them, the captive women are simply part of the administrative staff. This psychological torture surpasses physical brutality. Maternal instincts war with Roman patriotism as women realize their children are safer and happier in Hun civilization than they would be in the ruins of Roman cities. The children aren't victims, they're willing participants in the culture that destroyed their birth world. Winter approaches with news that Roman diplomatic missions seek peace treaties. The irony becomes clear. Captive women who once lived in Roman cities now serve as cultural bridges between civilizations. Their captivity has transformed them into exactly what Attila intended: human transmission devices for imperial synthesis. Their personal struggles reflect the larger imperial crisis. Rome itself must choose between destruction through resistance or survival through accommodation with Hun power. When the Roman embassy arrives with tribute for Attila, one captive woman recognizes the lead negotiator as her husband's former commander. The irony cuts deeper than any blade. Rome now negotiates as an equal with the empire built on systematic cultural theft. The diplomatic mission arrives in spring 451, and Senator Maximus leads Roman negotiators seeking peace treaties with Hun leadership. Standing among the interpreters, former captives watch their homeland's representatives offer territorial concessions and regular tribute payments. Rome acknowledges Hun legitimacy through formal diplomatic protocol. During negotiations, Captive women serve as cultural bridges between civilizations. Their knowledge of both Roman customs and Hun administrative procedures, making them indispensable to treaty discussions. The irony isn't lost on anyone present. Their captivity has transformed them into exactly what Attila intended: human transmission devices for imperial synthesis. One woman recognizes Senator Maximus as her dead husband's commanding officer. She served wine in his villa during military planning sessions, managed his household during campaign seasons, raised his children while he fought Germanic tribes along the Rhine. Now she translates his words into Hun dialects while wearing foreign clothes and carrying another man's child. The senator negotiates territorial boundaries, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts with Hun officials who speak multiple languages fluently and understand Roman law better than many Romans. His diplomatic party includes gifts of gold, silk, and precious stones, tribute acknowledging Hun power rather than temporary appeasement of barbarian raiders. Archaeological evidence reveals the infrastructure supporting these diplomatic relations. Hun settlements contain permanent diplomatic quarters designed for extended negotiations. Treaty documents written in multiple scripts, administrative records showing systematic tribute collection from Roman territories. This wasn't occasional extortion, but regular imperial taxation administered through sophisticated bureaucratic systems. Captive children born during the years of Hun expansion now serve as cultural interpreters during diplomatic sessions. Half Roman, half Hun, they speak both languages natively and understand both cultural systems instinctively. Their existence proves the success of Attila's imperial synthesis program. But resistance continues through subtle sabotage that Hun administrators struggle to detect. During treaty negotiations, some interpreters provide deliberately misleading translations. Others pass coded intelligence to Roman diplomats through seemingly innocent conversation. A few introduce minor errors into administrative documents that might prove useful if war resumes. The psychological impact on captive women watching these negotiations surpasses previous trauma. They witness their homeland's representatives treating Hun officials as equals, acknowledging territorial claims that include their destroyed cities, agreeing to tribute payments that will fund future campaigns against other Roman populations. Personal betrayal cuts deepest when Senator Maximus discusses trade agreements that will benefit both empires. The woman who once managed his household hears him, praise Hun administrative efficiency, and suggests Roman adoption of certain Hun governmental innovations. Her captor's methods are influencing her homeland's political development. Spring negotiations reveal Attila's broader strategic vision. The Hun Empire isn't planning further westward expansion, but consolidation of existing territories and development of sustainable tribute relationships with neighboring powers. The systematic cultural absorption will continue, but through diplomatic pressure rather than military conquest. News arrives during diplomatic sessions that Hun forces are massing for a massive campaign into Gaul. The infrastructure captive women helped build cultural synthesis, administrative systems. Imperial ambitions will now be used to extend Hun power deeper into Western Europe. Their unwilling contributions enable campaigns that threaten everything remaining of Roman civilization. The final diplomatic session occurs as winter approaches. Roman negotiators depart with treaty agreements that acknowledge Hun territorial claims and establish regular tribute schedules. The captive women watch their homeland's representatives leave without any mention of prisoner exchanges or demands for captive repatriation. One woman makes a desperate choice during the embassy's final banquet. She approaches Senator Maximus during a moment when Hun guards are distracted by ceremonial toasts. Speaking in rapid Latin, she passes detailed intelligence about Hun military capabilities, supply lines, internal political divisions, and strategic weaknesses. The children they're raising will be more dangerous than their armies, she whispers urgently. They're building something we don't understand. These aren't barbarians. They're imperial rivals, using our own methods against us. The senator's shocked recognition confirms her identity, but Hun guards notice the extended conversation. As the Roman embassy departs, she realizes her final act of resistance may have provided Rome with crucial intelligence, but it certainly sealed her own fate within the Hun Empire. The intelligence passed to Roman diplomats proves crucial when Hun armies face a massive coalition at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains in 451. For the first time in decades, Attila's expansion meets organized resistance that understands Hun capabilities. The coalition victory doesn't destroy Hun power, but forces strategic recalculation. Attila's death 2 years later ends the immediate expansion threat, but the civilizational synthesis continues evolving under new leadership. Hun administrative techniques spread throughout post-Roman Europe. Roman law adapts to accommodate Germanic customs. The imperial model itself transforms. Captive women survive to witness their children growing up, bilingual and bicultural, equally comfortable in Roman forums and Hun councils. The sons and daughters born in captivity become architects of a new European order that blends multiple civilizational traditions. Their mixed heritage makes them valuable diplomats and administrators in an increasingly complex political landscape. One woman lives to see her daughter become an ambassador between Hun successor states and Byzantine territories. The child captured at age 3 during Aquileia's destruction now manages complex international negotiations using cultural knowledge from both parents' traditions. Her mother's suffering enabled capabilities that serve post-imperial diplomacy. But the true horror wasn't the brutality, it was the efficiency. The Huns didn't destroy Roman civilization. They absorbed it, transformed it, and made it their own. The women they captured weren't just victims. They were unwilling architects of cultural evolution that reshaped European development for centuries. Modern archaeogenetic research reveals concrete evidence of this systematic cultural absorption. DNA analysis of burial sites across former Hun territories shows unprecedented genetic diversity, reflecting organized population integration. Celtic mitochondrial lineages appear in Eastern European populations. Germanic Y chromosomes show up in traditionally Slavic territories. The genetic data confirms what historical sources could only hint at. Hun population policies fundamentally altered European demographics through systematic mixing of conquered peoples. The scale was enormous, affecting modern European genetics in ways that persist to the present day. Female mitochondrial DNA analysis reveals the most significant evidence. Western European female lineages integrated into Eastern populations during the Hun period show patterns consistent with systematic captivity and forced integration. The women captured at places like Aquileia became foundational ancestors of medieval European civilization. Yet, this genetic legacy raises uncomfortable questions about cultural transmission. The innovations emerging from Hun territories improved metallurgy, sophisticated administration, multicultural diplomatic practices were built on systematic exploitation of captive populations. Civilizational advances came at human costs that genetic analysis makes impossible to ignore. Archaeological evidence reveals voluntary cultural adoption alongside forced integration. Some Romans, Goths, and other groups actively chose to join Hun society, attracted by opportunities unavailable in their traditional communities. The empire's appeal transcended simple coercion, suggesting genuine innovations that attracted willing participation. This voluntary collaboration complicates simple narratives of oppression. The Huns created something genuinely innovative, a multicultural imperial system that absorbed and synthesized diverse traditions more effectively than any previous civilization. But this innovation depended on systematic violence against women whose choices were eliminated by conquest. The Hun Empire fragmented after Attila's death, but its methods didn't disappear. Medieval European kingdoms adopted similar strategies of cultural absorption, population management, and systematic intermarriage. The techniques pioneered by Hun administrators became standard practice throughout post-Roman civilization. Contemporary archaeological techniques continue revealing evidence of systematic population management across historical periods. The methods pioneered by the Huns echo in every subsequent imperial project, from Carolingian expansion to Norman conquest to later colonial systems. The connection between individual suffering and collective progress challenges comfortable assumptions about historical development. The women who endured Hun captivity paid personally for innovations that modern populations take for granted. Understanding this relationship doesn't diminish their tragedy. It reveals how personal trauma becomes civilizational foundation in ways that resist simple moral judgment. Modern European populations remain fundamentally shaped by Hun period demographic changes. The genetic evidence shows continuing influence from systematic population mixing that occurred over 15 centuries ago. Every modern European carries genetic markers reflecting this period of systematic cultural synthesis. The most successful conquests aren't those that destroy, they're those that absorb, transform, and ultimately become indistinguishable from the civilizations they replaced. The Hun model wasn't unique. It was simply the most documented example of processes that shape all human societies during periods of major transition. The women of Aquileia and countless other destroyed cities paid the price for innovations that defined European civilization for centuries. Their suffering enabled advances in governance, technology, and cultural synthesis that continue influencing modern political development. Recognizing this connection doesn't justify their treatment. It reveals the complex relationship between individual trauma and collective progress that characterizes all major historical transformations.